This is giving Kinder with the kind of color difference here. When you taste it and you really focus, you can kind of differentiate between the two. Very, very interesting. Good afternoon, folks. Welcome back to Maverick Baking and welcome back to another chocolate review. Today we are talking about something interesting, something a bit unexpected, and hopefully something not overpriced or disappointing. We don't ask much here, really. We're talking about the new Lindt Excellence Fusion bars. We're talking about 3 different flavors because they have released 3 different flavors. We have a fusion being kind of one half of each square, 70% dark chocolate, and the other a milk chocolate, probably around 25-30%. One which is 85% cocoa with salt, like that. I like it, but a bit random. And some of the same milk chocolate underneath. And one which is going to be 70% cocoa with white chocolate. Now, was it inspired by like the Cadbury Top Deck? I don't really know. I don't know who this is for, but I found it interesting and I'm hoping it's going to be good. Let's get our teeth into it and see if it's worth picking up. I'd like to start with the 85% cocoa and the extra creamy milk chocolate. Lindt's extra creamy milk chocolate's been a favourite for me for years, so I'm very interested to see how this goes. So we have a kind of regular card packaging, that lovely kind of crinkly silver Lindt foil in there. And opening up, we can see that we have on one side dark chocolate, unsurprisingly, and on the other that milk chocolate. So I have to say the dominant smell is the milk chocolate. We have a decent snap, which we like. It's not always a sign of quality, but it's a sign that they've taken care to actually temper it properly. The division of the two looks fairly 50-50, as it says it will be on the packaging. So let's get into it, see how it tastes. Very, very interesting. As you get into it straight away, I've tried my best not to chew too much. It's always the best thing to do with darker chocolate because it allows things to melt slowly and let all the flavours develop so that you're not just hoofing it down your throat. I'm just only tasting the kind of bitter parts. That is a good combo. Straight away, you taste mostly the kind of milk chocolate because the sweetness hits you, you get the creaminess, it melts beautifully. Also very happy to see that in the ingredients list, there's no kind of added oil or extra fats or anything like that, but it's not all sugar, it's not all milk, it's not oily, you know, some of the kind of Lindor products can be. And the aftertaste is a lovely, strong taste of dark chocolate. They've also used very, very well the salt, in my opinion. It's not salty in the way that a salted caramel would be, but it mellows out the sweetness and also really kind of heightens that dark chocolate taste without it becoming acidic or bitter. That's delicious. It's not the most mind-blowing of chocolate experiences, but it's smooth while still being intense. It's bold, but it's still enjoyable without being kind of too much. It's tasty. Texture's good. For me, that's a solid 4 out of 5. Shall we move on to one slightly less dark, but also not with salt? We're moving on to the 70% cocoa and still the extra creamy milk chocolate, even though this one, for some reason, the same extra creamy milk has a brown background instead of a blue one. I don't know. We have the same thing going on here with the kind of two-toned chocolate bar, as the packaging shows. Another good snap. We have that kind of 50-50 division again, though the smell is, I would say, overwhelmingly the kind of milk chocolate. Let's see how this one is. This one is, though less intense, it's also less interesting. You mostly taste, again, the milk chocolate, the sweetness, the creaminess at the start, that then gives away to the dark chocolate. But whether it's the lower cocoa percentage, whether it's the lack of the addition of salt, or both, probably both, this one just tastes a bit flat in comparison. Perhaps that's on me for tasting this one after the first one, but it just, I don't know, this one just tastes like you're eating like a 60% milk chocolate. There isn't a kind of as clear a division, there isn't the same kind of complexity in your mouth, and the aftertaste is milder, but in a way that kind of makes you question why not just make this like a 50% chocolate or a 60% chocolate, you know, because you don't really have as much contrast in there. Still smooth, still a nice balance between kind of sweet and creamy. It's not oily as some of Lindt's other products can be, as I said. Would I rush back to buy this one? No, probably not. Very kind of middle of the road, though not badly done. I would give this one a 3 out of 5. And moving on to the third and final bar that we have lined up today, which is the fusion between 70% cocoa and white chocolate, which they call vellutato here in Italy, which I guess would just be smooth, creamy, a lot less poetic sounding. Looking like it's going to be a very milky white chocolate. The main ingredient in this one is sugar, so I imagine also a sweet white chocolate. There is an emulsifier, there's some vanilla in there, but again, very happy to see there's no added extra oils, which in white chocolate is also very common to give you that kind of almost fake smoothness to it. We have the same kind of packaging on the inside. This one is the one that has the most obvious visual contrast. Same snap, despite the white chocolate. This is giving Kinder with the kind of color difference here. And I would say the smell isn't actually too different from the other ones. Let's see if that taste contrast is similar to the color contrast. I would say straight away, the white chocolate is being aggressively dominated by the dark chocolate. Not particularly surprising though. When you taste it and you really focus, you can kind of differentiate between the two. But the white chocolate, you couldn't really describe on its own. The creamy milk chocolate has a definitive kind of Lindt flavour and it stands out. The contrast is there. This one, much mellower. You're still noticing it more than the second bar, which is kind of, but it mostly just tastes like a super creamy 70% dark chocolate, if that makes any sense at all. Not unpleasant by any means. Noticeably sweeter also, and the texture, because of the kind of white chocolate, is leaning slightly towards chalky. It isn't chalky, but it's not quite as meltingly smooth as the previous one. You can taste more vanilla in there, but it isn't a million miles away from the second bar we tasted. This one I actually think gives you more of the white chocolate in the aftertaste, because you have that kind of lingering sweet sensation afterwards. You have slightly more taste from the vanilla. There's chocolate in there, but it's a bit more muddled, if that makes sense. For this one, probably tastier and still somewhat more interesting both visually and, you know, on the palate than the previous one. Texture not quite as good, and again, just overall less complex and less interesting than the very first bar. So for this, I would say certainly not unpleasant, and it's delivering what it says it's going to do, but I would also give this one a 3 out of 5. If you guys have tasted any of these bars, do let me know. I do like the idea of the kind of contrasting chocolates. Clearly is something that works better with some pairings than others, but it's the kind of thing I think would be really fun for them to play with. And I think today we've discovered just how much I enjoy salt. Or if you haven't tried these, let me know which one you would like to pick up first in the comments, which one interests you the most. But I'm afraid that's all I have time for today, folks. Thanks so much as always for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.